Let's fast break through a few more highlights, and we check it on Milwaukee and Memphis. And watch Mike Miller here running down the floor. Miller runs into Desmond Mason, and Paul Gasol and Mason get into it.
Mason, Paul Gasol.
Miller would lead the game. Grizzlies up 57. Here in Bill Laimbeer in the studio, we check in on the Cavs and Timberwolves. KG against LeBron James. And how about Kevin Garnett, Bill?
He is playing like an MVP. I wish I could have done that when I was playing.
Okay. We all wish we could have done that.
I'm actually glad that Bill Laimbeer is not playing in that game with Kevin Garnett above the rim, because Bill Laimbeer would be undercutting him the entire time.
KG would be on his back.
What about LeBron James?
The Spurs, they can't stop Tim Duncan. That's the problem. They can't stop Tim Duncan, Bill.
Guard somebody, anybody. Knock somebody on their butt. Do something.
I'm glad y'all find this funny. This is disgraceful.
These guys in the gym during the summertime, big men, I should say a majority of big men play the game because they're big. And somebody said, hey, you should go out for the basketball team. Tim Duncan is definitely an exception. This guy thrives in the gym. He's a big man who's a gym rat.
Well, now I know what happened to me because my whole body stopped firing about 3 years ago. Now, at least I know what to call it now. Bruce Bowen and Finley are going to go at it right here. Finley got hit in the stomach by Bowen. Finley just streaked over there and gave him an elbow.
We talked about Bruce Bowen and that people feel that
he wears on you, man. He just irritates you. And when it comes time to this time of the game, you just get sick of it, especially when you're having a bad game and things are going this way. He just gets on your nerves.
Actually, Finley's had a pretty good quarter, but he's had to shake Bowen. Well, he hasn't been able to at times.
You see there's nothing dirty there. He's just continuing to move his feet, and he's playing. Oh, there's a little bumping and grinding.
And Don Nelson is out on the court and in Crawford's face.
Now, Bruce Bowen looked like he might have lowered his shoulder and gone right into Michael Finley.
Yeah, I'd like to see that play again and see if he was just coming up the floor trying to get a position.
Don Nelson gets a technical, and he might be heading for number 2. There it is. He's gone. Now it's going to be whether or not you leave in a timely manner. I guess that's the only other drama left for Nelly. He's out of here.
Well, definitely a frustrating night for the Mavs and Nelly. We just got to think about what they're going to do maybe on Sunday. But
well, here's another look at it.
There's the first bump. Was Finley's, not Bowen's.
No, he came back and got that and retaliated on what Bruce did. He just came back and got up and ran over and just nailed Bruce.
Right, that's the second one. And Finley leads.
Well, you know what happens. You always get caught on the second one. The guy just absolutely kills you, and you go back and you try to retaliate and you get caught. And that always happens. Bruce could have easily gotten a flagrant foul at half court when he barreled into Michael Finley.
Rose misses at the free throw line, so Del Harris going to take over the ship here. And Donnie Nelson as well. Those two will be running the ball club in Don Nelson's absence. Bowen at the free throw line now. And Bruce, not a good free throw shooter, but has been actually pretty good as of late. And he hits big ones. You know he wants these after the altercation with Finley. And he got them both.
Yeah, Bruce is like a 50% free throw shooter.
Again, we'll give you the chronological order of this. There's the first collision.
I don't think he meant to go up and hit him, but once he got there, he did lower his shoulder and gave him a blow. But I think he was running up trying to get a steal.
Nowitzki still with one field. Oh, boy, there's another collision. Ginobili and Nahara.
I mean, this is the wrong time to get physical. They should have came out and did it in the first quarter.
Exactly.
See here, Nahara coming down is going to set a screen on Ginobili kind of lays into him a little bit, throws the arm up. Good call by the official. Yeah, just lays him out. Good call, but Dallas should have been embarrassed a long time before this and started laying people out and playing a little bit more physical with more emotion like they're doing now.
And you know what, also, Dan and Brad, when you talk about great defensive players throughout the history of the league, they all have a gimmick or a shtick. Look at Dennis Rodman. He used to get inside your head. He used to play physical, hard-nosed defense. He would knock you down just like Bruce knocked down Michael Finley. Look at what Ron Artest has done over the years. He's physical. He gets in your head. All these guys, the key to playing defense, yeah, you got to move your feet. You got to know how to play defense, but it's mental as well.
And now Nowitzki gets called for an offensive foul run over Ginobili, and Nowitzki is as hot as you can get.
And we got another technical foul on Dirk as he complains to Crawford. But you know, Sean, you're right. You never see a good defensive player who's not a physical guy, who doesn't like the contact, who's not afraid to put his body out there. And on the guys you mentioned do that. And on top of that, they get inside you. They get under your skin somehow, and it messes with your game. Look at Gary Payton. All those years when he was all first-team NBA, he would talk to you and talk to you, and he'd be like, I got to shut this guy up, and it'd get inside your head, and you lose focus of what you were trying to do. That's what Bruce Bowen does. That's what Ron Artest does. That's what Dennis Rodman used to do.
Since the ejection, 3 offensive fouls on Dallas. Three-pointer by Turkoglu. Nowitzki got it for 3.
9, Nowitzki, 9!
He'll take 3 instead of 9.
That was great because Nash came down there pushing the ball. Nice behind-the-back pass with his left hand. Nowitzki, who hasn't been able to make too many baskets tonight, starting to feel it here in the fourth. And with Finley out, that's the guy's going to have to step up and hit the big shots.
And Robert Horry has picked up a technical for pushing, and this could turn out to be a 4-point play for the Mavs. And what you're seeing now is what happened to this team a couple nights ago against the Memphis Grizzlies. Controlled the game for 3.5 quarters. Down the stretch, turnovers, poor execution cost them the game. They've come down in this fourth quarter. They've turned the ball over. The Mavs have taken advantage of the opportunities and come back and scored in a big way.
Don Nelson in his 3,037th game didn't see the end of it. A double technical. He was ejected in the third quarter. Since that time, however, Dallas has a spark going right now, and they've worked their way back to run. There's Ray Allen now starting to find the range a bit. Just over 4 minutes gone by, second quarter. Sonics have cut the lead now to 7. Fined $10,000 by the NBA for criticizing the officials after a recent Sonics loss. It's something that Allen felt he had to do from a team leader standpoint.
There's so many things that were happening that, you know, it was almost like, you know, we didn't have a chance. And I know a lot of guys, a lot of teams feel certain ways in this league, but, you know, that was a point where, you know, I got fouled out and we lost the game. We had an opportunity to win it. And, you know, I thought it was induced by referees. And, you know, I had to say something after the game just because, you know, we deserve to be treated fairly.
He accepted the responsibility and said he understands how hard the officials work and it's a difficult job and they do a good job, but it just felt it's something he had to do. He thought the fine was excessive, but felt it was important as a team leader to speak up. The problem there, and he's aware of it, is Johnson misfires, McDyess good offensive rebound, and Jacobson trying to find something, is that sometimes young players see a leader target officials like that, and it becomes a crutch as to why you lose.
The frustration. It just comes down to the losing creates a frustration, and Nate's gotten more technicals in the last few weeks. They had a couple games where Radmanovic got technicals, Potapenko got technicals. They all have gotten some technicals in bad situations, and Nate addressed that and told them to settle down and get off the referee.
Guys, Greg Ostertag going a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs now. Was it the officials or Jermaine O'Neal driving him crazy? You'll find Evan Frazier, Greg Anthony in the studio. Indiana and Utah in a dogfight. Remember, the Jazz have brought off 4 straight. Greg Ostertag called for the foul, and he goes a little crazy, argues, and then don't beat up on the scorer's table, big fella. Well, probably he was frustrated because Jermaine O'Neal went to work, Greg.
You know what? This team is under the radar, and they've won as many games as anybody in the NBA, and he is a big reason why.
28 points for Jermaine with the bad hand.
Well, Tess is a bull.
Yeah, well, the Pacers, because Reggie drops the dagger. 90. Bye-bye now. Pacers taking on the Kings tonight. Huge matchup at Conseco Fieldhouse, but Ron Artest in the news again. Remember that bump of Caron Butler, and then, of course, the I hate HDTV moment. We'll tell you what's going on in a second. Anthony in the studio. Ron Artest missing tonight's game with the Kings for that elbow to Derek Anderson's head Wednesday night. Boy, love hurts. Meanwhile, how is this team doing without a
In Dallas, an 18-point lead over the Boston Celtics. He was also in the news. This was a game March 5th, Dallas and San Antonio. Of course, the hard hit, Bruce Bowen and Michael Finley. It was after that Cuban told his players that he would pay the fine if someone would hit Bowen in the face with the ball, and he was fined this week $10,000 by the NBA. Another fine from the league office. And now with Mark Cuban is our Jim Gray.
Mike, thank you very much. Mark, let me ask you about that fine. You basically turned yourself in by disclosing what it is that you had said to Josh. Do you regret, A, that you disclosed it, and B, that you said it in the first place?
I'm going to refer everybody to my blog, blogmaverick.com, where there's complete explanation.
Our audience can't do that. We're watching the game, so tell us.
Now, it doesn't matter. I talked to Josh in the first half about what I thought the flow of the game was, and then just the way the game turned out, I talked about it afterwards, and it got misreported, and that's just the way it goes. So the league had their reasons, and I'm fine with that.
But you realize by saying something like that, Mark, that you're advocating violence to a certain degree, and that's not correct, is it?
Like I said, Jim, go to the blog, because obviously you didn't understand what I said to you earlier. I didn't advocate any violence at all, never crossed my mind. I told him specifically these exact words: do not use your elbows, do not break any rules, do not try to hurt anybody, period, in the story. So there was no advocation of violence whatsoever. Is that a word, advocation?
That's Mavericks basketball. You got to slow them down in transition. But I tell you what, Banks, I saw him a couple weeks ago, and he's so shifty. It's unbelievable. He made a move in front of Steve Nash. He faked himself out.
Davis gets inside, and it's going to be a jump ball. Tell you what, that's two straight possessions that Dirk Nowitzki's help defense was terrific.
And that's what they haven't had. I mean, in past games, you drive past that first defender for the Mavericks, and it's a ghost town back there. But this time, you have guys back there to help. At least Nowitzki came over to at least contest that shot by Ricky Davis. That's what was lacking for the Mavericks.
Davis then upset, picks up a technical foul. He thought he was fouled. Not the smart thing to do when you're down by 16 and trying to get back in the game. So Nash will shoot the technical free throw, and Danny Crawford talking it over with Ricky Davis. Crawford, one of the premier officials in the NBA. Yes. He's in his 21st year, and I think his biggest strength as a referee, obviously he knows the rules and how to apply them. His rapport with players is just terrific.
Yeah, I mean, he knows how to handle guys, and we've been in meetings where coaches have singled him out and said, they knew that they had a chance if he was out there because he's going to call the game fairly.
Nash gets inside. Howard. A lot of contact. Pierce gets knocked down. Howard does a good job making sure he gets away. Blunt and Walker pushing and shoving each other as Pierce fell down. And a technical foul call on Mark Blunt. Bad decision from Blunt to get involved in talking after the play had already been over.
I thought Danny Crawford did a fantastic job of calming that situation, but the Celtics players wouldn't let it go.
Pierce fell down, and the Mavericks did a good job of trying to step over Pierce and not step on him. And Walker and Blunt got into it. Nash will shoot the technical free throw. Lead again is 11. Still lots of time remaining, but that hurts the Celtics trying to come back. Let's take a look at the play again.
Howard there crashing in, and that Pierce on the floor trying to draw the charge.
Well, see, you saw Josh Howard step over Pierce to try and avoid him. Howard did the right thing, and Blunt pushed him out of the way. That was Mark Blunt's call, but as you said, Sean, Danny Crawford let him go the first time. All right, it's a big game, but he kept it up.
Yeah, and I like how he handled the situation, but the Celtics players have got to let it go and just continue to play.
Between coach and player last night in the Cleveland Cavaliers. The scene after an 8-second violation, Paul Silas got into it with Eric Snow. and so went to the locker room after Silas, it looked like, waved him to go there. The coach clearly did not want to discuss it after the game. Silas extremely upset with his point guard.
Listen, I said I'm not going to talk about it, all right? Don't ask me nothing about Eric Snow. Nothing. I don't want to hear his name, okay? I said I'm not going to talk about it.
The sense of urgency, though, was what I think we're getting at.
Listen, I said I'm not going to talk about it. You're not going to make me talk about it. I don't have to talk about it if I don't want to. Ask me any other question, okay?
I'm not talking about him specifically.
Well, don't mention his name to me. You said Eric Snow. I said I'm not going to talk about it.
Didn't even want to mention his name. Paul Silas didn't want to talk about it. Clearly, that won't be a problem with you.
Not at all. I mean, I'm going to talk about Eric Snow. I called him earlier this morning. Eric Snow said that he basically mumbled a curse word under his breath, but he just said it. He didn't direct it towards Paul Silas. He was just frustrated because he was being taken out of the game after 1 minute. Paul Silas had him removed. Afterward, Paul Silas told him he was going to suspend him for 1 game. He didn't know whether that was going to happen or not. Paul Silas said, I'll get you out of here if you want to. Eric Snow said, go ahead and do it. I don't care. It's a very hostile situation. At least it was last night. I think it simmered down a little bit.
Generally, a player's coach, most people would think as well.
When they know the extent, they will put it out to everybody else. He is definitely done for night and probably for tomorrow night when they continue on the road in Orlando. Mike?
All right, Jim, thank you. Andre Miller, after that dunk, turned and stared at Dwayne Wade, and then Wade said something back.
He got like scoreboard open. We've seen that twice now from the Nuggets tonight. First, Kenyon Martin early on. Nice pass.
Beautiful feed, Leitner to Wade, and Wade now looking back at Miller, and here's the technical foul on Wade. Ron Olesiak wisely calling the taunting technical, even though he didn't see Miller doing it down the other end. But you need to nip this in the bud right now. Wade telling Olesiak, hey, he did it to me.
But this is where Eddie Jones or Shaquille O'Neal have to come over to Dwayne Wade and say, hey, look, move beyond this. Rise above the nonsense.
Let's take a look now. Here's Miller. Miller goes in for the dunk after he stole it from Wade. Now watch Miller. Gives him that look. Little comment. Wade comes back. And here's Wade's retort.
Great give and go. The nice slam. And looks right at him. Whistle for the taunting technical.
The right call from Ron Olesiak. Wade's team, though, by 14. That's the key. So Boykins will shoot the one-shot technical.
And the common thread to all those 4 teams, great.
At that end of the court. They're awful defensively right now. And the game is a great flow.
Somebody got a technical foul on the Miami bench. And I think it might be on one of the assistants. I think it was on Stan Van Gundy.
How did you feel, Coach, when one of your assistants got a tee? Did you mind?
In a big game, I did mind. But during the season, I think they get frustrated just as we do. And they might go a little bit too far once in a while. Just as long as it happened a few times a year, it never bothered me.
It was on Stan Van Gundy, I guess, but as they may be correcting that because it did not look like it was on Stan Van Gundy. In any case, free throw made, tied at 48. Yes. It was on Keith Askins, the Miami assistant. It was not even on the top assistant in Bob McAdoo, with a 14-year assistant, but Keith Askins picks up the tee.
I know how the league could bump the fine up about $1,000 and no assistant would get a technical foul. 500 they'll go with, but 1,000 I think they would stop all assistants from talking.
Keith is very familiar here in Miami, the all-time franchise leader in games played, near 500 during his 9-year NBA career, and now a couple of years as an assistant down here. He feels like it's such an advantage coming out. It's both tape junkies. They watch so much tape, Jeff and Stan. Jeff on the short end of it tonight against Memphis as his Houston team is trailing. And here Stan's team is down 5 and a technical foul call after the complaint about the foul call with Antoine Jameson. It was quick, so it must have been a less than attractive adjective.
I think it was the ball throwing.
Was it?
The ball throwing was, I think Howard threw the ball low at his feet. And being a rookie, you don't get that privilege.
So to the line comes Alston, who hits the tee, making it 86-82. Get a look here. Yep.
Yeah.
What was that? From a bounce pass. A low bounce pass. So he get teed for bad passes?
A technical foul was also called.
There's the tee, and Howard also picked up the personal there.
Crawford on the drive off the glass. Offensive foul is called this time on Crawford. And a technical. The technical foul, I believe, is on Marbury. The foul is on Crawford. And Rip Hamilton will shoot the technical. So with a minute to go, and the Pistons making a spirited run here in the second half.
The Pistons just haven't been able to get rid of that hump and get the lead.
And Stephon comes right up. Stephon Marbury and the Knicks continue.
All right, guys, just a couple of notes about Stephon Marbury's competitiveness. Before we went to break, the entire Piston bench was yelling at him, go to your left, go to your left. They were yelling at Hamilton, make him go to his left, make him go to his left. Well, Marbury spun left, nailed the jumper, looked at the bench derisively as if to say, nobody in this building can guard me tonight. Back to you guys.
He might be right.
Were suspended for the fight would be allowed to practice with the team. Is there a word on whether they can or not?
They are allowed to practice with the team, according to Rick Carlisle, the coach of the Indiana Pacers. They are allowed to practice with the team, but they haven't because since this incident took place, they basically wanted to give them some time off to relax, clear their heads, and what have you, and see what goes on with these hearings before they do anything. Ron Artest has been working out with Chuck Person, however.
For all of us who keep hearing the fact that the Players Association is going to try and appeal these suspensions, it's a little bit strange because David Stern stood up there at the podium and said it was a 1-0 vote, and the CBA says that that is his decision. So what recourse do the players really have?
Well, the players believe that the incident didn't take place on the court. It took place off the court because it was in the stands. And by virtue of that, an arbitrator should be allowed to hear the case. Now, they've taken this case to an arbitrator, and the arbitrator has agreed to listen to see whether or not he indeed has jurisdiction to hear this case. And basically, if he decides that he does have that jurisdiction, then he's also going to allow them to discuss the merits of the case. The NBA has filed a lawsuit in federal court just this afternoon. Basically, they don't want him to hear the case at all, and I'm hearing that as of Monday, they're also going to file a temporary restraining order. But that's according to the Players Association, that part. I have not confirmed that with the league office yet.
The way this is shaking out, you wonder if David Stern might have been better off, say, giving a year's suspension with the door open after 40 games to appeal it, because it may end up that way anyway. John Saunders in New York with a Taco Bell update. Prosecutors in Michigan now say they've identified the fans and 5 players involved in the brawl. Lieutenant James Manning explains who will be charged.
The 5 players that we're talking about from the Pacers organization were all involved in fighting, assault and battery type behavior. It'll be up to the prosecutor to decide exactly who will be charged for what offense, because some people are involved in multiple altercations. The law does have a provision to allow you to defend yourself or defend somebody else who's being assaulted.
Well, of course, the story continues, and Larry Brown was telling us that every city they go in now, every time they go into a city for the first time, the story's brought up again, and it's something that they're going to have to deal with, it being a part of the year, at least early. He says in Detroit, a lot of it has died down, but now in each city they go to, they revisit it, which they knew was going to happen.
But the jurisprudence aspect is just beginning and will take a long, long time. But the hangover on the team, the sadness, the loss of the self-respect as self-control was lost that night, that's going to be something that everyone is going to have to deal with. She forcing the toughness, and then Big Ben just gobbling them all up. Offensive foul.
Wallace knocking down Duncan, and obviously disagrees with the call as he looks at Derek Collins. You know, I hate that, what he just did. Instead of handing the ball to the official, he just drops it and walks away as if to say, hey, you go pick it up.
I concur.
That's one of the things coming out of the incident at the Palace of Auburn Hills that you hope maybe changes with the players, and maybe they'll start being a little more respectful to each other, to opponents, to teammates, to referees.
But most importantly, you have to realize that you're wrong in the first place.
Rocket. And better than 6 different shot clock and game clock. That's a pass to Swift. His shot was blocked by Mutombo. The fans want a goaltend. Blocked again by Mutombo. And the Rockets come up with it with 14 seconds left. And a technical foul on UB Brown. And Tony Baroni, one of his assistant coaches, comes out to get him. He said, look, no need in getting you tossed tonight. Dikembe Mutombo has 4 blocks in the game. He got 2 on that play.
Mutombo, with the 2 blocks, goes over 3,000, and that's 4th all-time in NBA history. But what QB is really upset about, he thought both of them were goaltends. The ball was up and on the way down, and Mutombo got a piece of it coming from underneath. Mike Miller comes in, and he just disrupted that one. This one, they thought, no, that's not good. Swift gets it back, and Mutombo says, you know what? Some of you guys better learn my name. D stands for defense for the Rockets, and that's one of the reasons Jeff Van Gundy picked him up. You look at the guys
Mutombo, one of the 4 guys with 3,000 or more blocks in his career with 3. UB Brown walks off. He's got a technical foul in this first half. And coming up at halftime, after these messages.
Well, Hubie Brown fired up as the half comes to an end. I'm not sure who he's angry with, but likely the guys he's going to the locker room with. His team is down 41-38. John Saunders, Tim Legler. Discuss whether or not David Stern and the NBA handled the suspensions the right way. Clearly, this was a public relations nightmare for the league. We'll tell you how long it'll take to recover from what took place in the Palace. And while the NBA tries to return to normal, what happens next for the Pistons, Pacers, and the league itself?
Artesta's in the stands. Oh, this is awful. Fans are getting involved. Steven Jackson's in the fans.
Players cannot lose control and go into the stands.
This is a disgrace.
We have to hold fans accountable for their antisocial behavior as well.
This is very, very dangerous. Ron Artest has a look in his eye that's very scary right now.
Ron Artest has been suspended for the remainder of the season. Steven Jackson has been suspended for 30 games. Jermaine O'Neal has been suspended for 25 games. Ben Wallace has been suspended for 6 games. We cannot tolerate a repetition of what occurred Friday night in Detroit.
This is the second home game for the Pistons since the brawl a week ago on Friday night. Rachel Nichols is there, and she updates us right now on exactly what security measures have changed for this game tonight.
Absolutely. Security is definitely the watchword here tonight. You're going to see the Pistons in their white uniforms and the black uniforms. You're going to see the Miami Heat. And in the blue uniforms, you're going to see the Auburn Hills Police Department. There are a lot of police here tonight, and they are armed. There's also security guards. There's also some undercover cops that you won't see. A few minutes ago, I had a chance to talk to Shaquille O'Neal, and I asked him, now that we've seen in this building things being thrown at players, we've seen fans rush onto the court, just how safe does he feel in this building?
I feel safe in every building I play in. You know, it's fun when the fans get involved. I think the incident that happened a week or a couple of weeks ago, something that we all got to learn from, and something that we all should move on from. Like Mr. Barkley said, I don't think it's something we should overreact to. You just have to know how to handle yourself in certain situations.
If someone threw an object like a cup at you, how would you handle it?
I'll probably handle it very corporately. but I don't think I would put myself in a position to have a cup thrown at me.
Corporately, how would you handle it?
Corporately, I'd be playing the next game, just put it that way.
Now, Shaq also said he's sick of seeing the footage of this, mostly because every time he watches it, he sees something different. I asked him, what do you see different? He said, well, David Harrison is a lucky man, I'll tell you that.
Maybe the way you defend Shaquille is get him in foul trouble, put him on the bench. One thing's for sure, his coach doesn't like the way it's called when Shaq is in the post.
Every game, and I'm trying not to yell and scream.
No, you're fine, Stan, we're fine.
Don't call the rules the same way on Shaq you do on everybody else.
All right,
he's so big.
That's your opinion. I understand that, but that's not what we're out here trying to do, Stan. We're trying to apply the rules the same for everybody.
And as he went across the lane, he put that one on. That's a foul, automatic.
All right, okay.
So that is the official's version of what is going on with Shaq, but that's not what is happening to the players as he overpowers Derek Coleman, and you watch the balance and the footwork of Shaquille O'Neal and trying to spin inside. But basically what you come up with is a guy that is just big and strong and overpowering, and the results are a lot of physical punishment given out by Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq is improved in this area this year and being a more active shot blocker.
Saw Shaq coming out after halftime, high-fiving the fans. That's part of the NBA experience here. So far, they haven't moved any of these fans back. Fans are still lining the court, but they are talking in the off-season about making some changes because there is a chance of objects coming at the players or fans rushing on the court. We'll have to see what happens.
But Rasheed Wallace's presence altered that shot. Jermaine O'Neal surrounded by Pistons, blocked for the foul. And Rasheed Wallace hit with a technical. The overly demonstrative reaction to the call prompted the technical.
Good call by the officials on the technical. You can't show up the ref. Larry Brown, against doctor's orders, up out of his chair all the way to half court. Somebody's got to grab Rasheed and keep him out of there.
Rasheed talking to Tony Nunez Jr., the rookie ref. Yeah, he seems to have, it's a good civil conversation. In fact, it's not a bad thing to do at this point. He's a rookie ref. They don't know each other yet. Go over and talk it over.
How about waiting 2 or 3 possessions and then muttering under your breath?
Before you calm, or, talk to him after you calm down.
And that's an easy play to call, right on the arm.
He fouled him. Might not have been a hard foul, but he hit him on the arm.
Jermaine O'Neal does not seem to have the explosiveness.
And here's why the technical, a little dance. And I think the wave came after he.
But you're getting residual. You don't get paid.
Well, no, why? Because he gets talked about in names. As a matter of fact, it surrounds Ron Artest, as you know. Said he was tired, wanted to take some time off because of promoting his album. And yesterday he had this to say about our shoot-around crew.
I don't think I misunderstood. I think what everybody thinks about me, besides when they, like a guy like the ESPN guys like Greg Anthony didn't badmouth me, but Steve and then the other guy. I mean, if I want to do what I want to do, if I want to leave this game right now and go home, and I got enough money saved up where I don't need the NBA no more. White hoods, black hoods, Chinese hoods, whatever hood, I'm there, and all these people can vouch for me, and the people like the guy Steven, he got to think about what he's saying first. You know what I'm saying? Because it's making me look bad, and I'm a role model to a lot of these young kids. You know what I'm saying? And now what are they going to think of me when he says I'm crazy? You know what I'm saying? When I'm trying to set a good example.
I don't think Stephen A. exactly said he was crazy, but Stephen A. and Greg Anthony get mentioned by name.
Well, I'm the other guy. If people didn't know who he was talking about, that would be me.
Well, at least you got mentioned. The other guy. He didn't even talk about, there's a host of this show, but let's talk about this entire controversy.
When he does things like this, people forget about what a great player he really is. And it's not just him being a great player. Remember the distraction that it creates for the rest of their team, because now everybody else has to discuss and talk about what's going on with Ron Artest. Ron Artest is a basketball player. When he's on the floor, it's a non-issue. But the stuff that you have to deal with as a player, as a teammate.
My question is he driving down the street like that, holding holding the album cover out the window. I mean, it gets more and more bizarre. You almost wish that Ron Artest would stop talking about this.
Well, it gives us material.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't mind. It gives us all the material in the world. And then what's funny is he says Stephen A. Smith needs to think before he talks. It's exactly what Ron Artest needs to do most of the time. Almost every time he opens his mouth, he needs to think before he talks. But I mean, again, it just gets back to the same thing for me. It's a shame he allows these things to detract from what he is as a basketball player, but it gives us material. We have a good time.